Wednesday, September 17, 2025, AGNDD, intelliReport topic. Through the Looking Glass. Please pardon any visual and informational inaccuracies in this entirely AI-generated Wikipedia-sourced video article. Dive into Lewis Carroll's journey crafting Through the Looking Glass, from whimsical inspirations to illustrator hurdles after Alice's adventures in Wonderland. Lewis Carroll, under his real name Charles Dodgson, published scholarly math works by 1871, but gained fame for the nonsensical Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, 1865, which defied Victorian didactic children's literature. Praised for its lack of morals, it sold well, prompting a sequel. Inspired by tales for the Little Sisters and possibly a mirror at their grandmother's or a cousin's anecdote, Carroll developed Through the Looking Glass slowly from 1866. He sent the first chapter to publisher Macmillan in 1869, finalizing the title after suggestions. Lewis Carroll faced challenges finding an illustrator for his sequel to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. He first approached John Tenniel, praised for his prior work, but their collaboration was strained by Carroll's perfectionism and control over production costs. Tenniel, busy with Punch, declined and suggested Richard Doyle, whom Carroll deemed inadequate. Other candidates like Arthur Hughes, W.S. Gilbert, and Noel Paton were rejected or unavailable. Tenniel reluctantly agreed to illustrate at his own pace, with Carroll noting a possible Christmas 1869 release. Lewis Carroll cut a 400-word section from Through the Looking Glass at proof stage, featuring a wasp in a yellow wig and a 5-stanza poem, intended for Chapter 8 after the White Knight encounter. Illustrator John Tenniel advised against it, deeming it beyond the appliances of art. The manuscript vanished, sparking doubts of its existence until 1974, when Sotheby's auctioned galley proofs with Carroll's revisions. Martin Gardner published it in 1977. The Sunday Telegraph reprinted it with new illustrations by Ralph Steadman, Sir Hugh Casson, Peter Blake, and Patrick Proctor. Lewis Carroll completed the text of Through the Looking Glass on January 4, 1871, noting it required more effort than the first Alice book but should match its quality. Illustrator John Tenniel still needed to finish nearly half the illustrations. By year's end, the book was ready for press. Though dated 1872 on the title page, it went on sale for Christmas 1871, selling 15,000 copies within weeks. The first American edition was published by Lee and Shepard in Boston and New York in 1872. Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass begins with a dramatis personae list, organizing characters for the story's chess game. It includes notes on the chess moves that unfold in the narrative. For additional minor characters, refer to the dedicated list. In Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, Alice navigates a chessboard-inspired world where squares are divided by brooks. From chapters 3 to 9, each brook crossing propels her to a new square, introducing eccentric characters and unfolding self-contained adventures, mirroring chess moves in her quest to become a queen. On a snowy November night, Alice sits by the fireplace with her white kitten Snowdrop and black kitten Kitty, chatting about chess and pondering the mirror's other side. Climbing up, she discovers she can pass through the looking glass into a reversed version of her home. There, she encounters a book of mirrored poetry, Jabberwocky, readable only via reflection and living chess pieces small enough to hold. Alice leaves the house and enters a sunny spring garden with talking flowers, some rudely insulting her. She meets the human-sized Red Queen, who demonstrates incredible running speed. The Queen explains the countryside is a giant chessboard. Alice can become a queen by reaching the 8th rank. Substituting for the young White Queen's pawn, Lily, Alice starts on the 2nd rank. The Red Queen advises, speak French for forgotten words, turn out toes while walking, and remember who you are. Alice boards a train that leaps from the 3rd to 4th row, landing in a forest. A gnat introduces her to looking-glass insects like the bread and butterfly and rocking horsefly before vanishing. she enters a wood where names are forgotten, losing her own identity. Joined by a nameless faun, they cross together and regain their memories on the other side. The faun flees upon realizing Alice is human. Alice follows a signpost to the house of twins Tweedledum and Tweedledee, reciting their nursery rhyme. The brothers recite the lengthy poem The Walrus and the Carpenter with its 18 stanzas. A roaring noise reveals the snoring Red King nearby. The twins distress Alice by claiming she's just a figment in his dreams, vanishing upon his awakening. As they arm for battle, a monstrous crow frightens them away. Alice encounters the absent-minded White Queen, who remembers future events from living backwards, causing initial giddiness. She urges Alice to believe impossibilities, claiming to believe 6 before breakfast. They cross a brook to the chessboard's 5th rank, where the Queen transforms into a talking sheep in a shop. Alice suddenly rows a boat on water, annoyed by the sheep's shouts of crabs and feathers. Returning to the shop, Alice sees trees and a brook inside, deeming it the queerest ever. Alice crosses the brook into the 6th rank and meets the egg-shaped Humpty Dumpty on a wall, celebrating his unbirthday, one of 364 days for presents. Rude to Alice, he deciphers Jabberwocky terms, introducing portmanteaus like mimsy, flimsy, and miserable. After parting, a massive crash signals his great fall, shaking the forest. Humpty Dumpty is aided by the king's horses and men, accompanied by the White King, Lion, and Unicorn. The March Hare and Hatter, disguised as messengers Hyga and Hatta, are employed by the king for errands, one to come, one to go. Recalling the nursery rhyme ending where the lion and unicorn receive plum cake and are drummed out of town, they start eating the cake when a deafening drumming noise erupts. Alice, startled by noise, crosses a brook to the 7th rank in the Red Knight's forested domain. The Red Knight attempts to capture her, but the clumsy White Knight intervenes, repeatedly tumbling from his horse. A quirky inventor of pointless gadgets, he escorts Alice through the woods to the last brook, reciting his nonsensical poem, A Sitting on a Gate. Carol vividly depicts this whimsical encounter in Chapter 8 of Through the Looking Glass. Alice bids farewell to the White Knight, crosses the final brook, and becomes a queen with a golden crown. Joined by the White and Red Queens, they plan a party hosted by Alice, but the queens fall asleep. Entering a doorway labeled Queen Alice, she finds a chaotic banquet in progress. Seated between the queens, Alice attempts a thank-you speech, but pandemonium erupts. Overwhelmed, she seizes the tablecloth, causing plates, dishes, guests, and candles to crash down. She blames the Red Queen for the mayhem. In Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking Glass, Alice, exasperated by the Red Queen's antics, seizes her and shakes her violently. The Queen shrinks and transforms into Alice's black kitten, revealing the chessboard world was a dream. This climactic moment underscores themes of illusion and reality. Alice awakens in her armchair, holding her cat, Kitty, whom she realizes embodied the Red Queen, while Snowdrop was the White Queen. Recalling Tweedledum and Tweedledee's theory that everything was the Red King's dream, Alice muses, "He was part of my dream, of course, but then I was part of his dream too." Lewis Carroll poses the riddle to readers. Which do you think it was? Through the Looking Glass extends Alice in Wonderland's linguistic puzzles and wordplay, with words possessing independent life, as noted by W.H. Auden. It parodies incoherent institutions through legalistic, arbitrary structures. Mirrored like chess, it inverts cause and effect, juxtaposing sense with nonsense. Alice, a child in an adult world, exposes social absurdities. The narrative emphasizes time's passage, blending playful rebellion with melancholy over childhood's end, framed by winter and death themes. Through the Looking Glass contrasts the card theme of the first Alice novel by using chess. Main characters are chess pieces, with Alice as a pawn. The world is a chessboard of squares divided by brooks. Crossing each advances her one square and changes scenes. Carroll's opening chess composition mirrors the story, bending rules like allowing white multiple consecutive moves and ignoring a check. Some notations, like the Queen's castling, symbolically refer to plot events such as entering the palace rather than literal moves. Lewis Carroll's Alice books feature whimsical poems like the prelude Child of the Pure Unclouded Brow, nonsense epic Jabberwocky, twin verses Tweedledum and Tweedledee, satirical The Walrus and the Carpenter, explanatory Humpty Dumpty, battle tale The Lion and the Unicorn, the White Knight's Ballad A Sitting on a Gate, Red Queen's Lullaby, To the Looking-Glass World, White Queen's Riddle, an acrostic postlude, A Boat Beneath a Sunny Sky, spelling Alice Pleasance Liddell's name. These blend humor, absurdity, and fantasy. Through the Looking-Glass features parodies like the White Knight's Ballad echoing Wordsworth and Moore, while To the Looking-Glass World mimics Scott's form, and The Walrus and the Carpenter shares Hood's meter without direct parody. Characters draw from real figures, Red Queen from Governess Miss Prickett, White Knight from Carroll and others, possibly satirizing the Oxford movement, for example, Tweedles as church factions, Jabberwock as papacy. Famous phrases include cabbages and kings, jam tomorrow, and portmanteau words. While most adaptations of Lewis Carroll's novels emphasize Alice's adventures in Wonderland and borrow elements from Through the Looking-Glass, the latter has seen dedicated stage versions in London. George Grossmith Jr.'s 1903 production premiered at the New Theatre. Nancy Price's 1935 adaptation at the Little Theatre, featuring actors like Frith Banbury and Joyce Redman, was revived for 3 subsequent Christmas seasons. Felicity Douglass's 1954 version at the Prince's Theatre starred Michael Dennison, Binnie Hale, and Margaret Rutherford. A 2016 film, Alice Through the Looking-Glass, incorporates characters but deviates entirely from the novel's plot. BBC Radio has produced several adaptations of Lewis Carroll's Through the Looking-Glass. The first full-cast version aired in 1944 with Esme Percy and others. A 1948 5-part serial featured Angela Glynn as Alice and Derek McCulloch as narrator. In 1963, Peter Sallis and Jeffrey Bayldon starred. A 1964 adaptation had Prunella Scales as Alice. The 2012 Radio 4 version included Julian Rhind-Tutt, Lauren Mote as Alice, and voices like Sally Phillips and Alistair McGowan. Various TV adaptations of Through the Looking-Glass include a 1966 American musical with book by Albert Simmons, music by Mark Charlap, and lyrics by Elsie Simmons starring Nanette Fabray as the White Queen, Agnes Moorehead as the Red Queen, Ricardo Montalban as the White King, Robert Coote as the Red King, Jimmy Durante as Humpty Dumpty, Jack Palance as the Jabberwock, and the Smothers Brothers as Tweedledum and Tweedledee. A 1960 BBC conflation of both Alice books. The first British adaptation in 1973 featuring Sarah Sutton, Alice, Brenda Bruce, White Queen, Richard Pearson, White King, Judy Parfitt, Red Queen, Jeffrey Bayldon, White Knight, and Freddie Jones, Humpty Dumpty. A 1998 version with Kate Beckinsale, Alice, Penelope Wilton, White Queen, Jeffrey Palmer, White King, Sian Phillips, Red Queen, and Desmond Barrett, Humpty Dumpty. In 1959, Argo Records released a dramatized audio adaptation directed by Douglas Cleverdon, narrated by Margaretta Scott, and starring Jane Asher as Alice, with Frank Duncan, Tony Church, Norman Shelley, and Carlton Hobbs. The book inspired musical works including Deems Taylor's 1919 orchestral suite with 5 movements each depicting a novel episode, and Alfred Reynolds' 1947 orchestral suite. Contemporary reviews of Through the Looking-Glass were largely positive. The Pall Mall Gazette praised Jabberwocky and Tenniel's illustrations, deeming it nearly equal to Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. The Illustrated London News lauded its humor and whimsy. The Examiner found it delightful despite not matching the original. The Independent called it equally charming and pure. Modern critic Daniel Hahn notes increased sentimentality, for example, Alice's farewell to the White Knight, and threatened violence, including horror in Jabberwocky and themes of death or dissolution. While many writers emulated Lewis Carroll, Through the Looking Glass influenced fewer works than Alice's Adventures in Wonderland. Lawrence Durrell referenced Jabberwocky in Sauve Qui Peut. Douglas Adams drew from the White Queen dream motifs and a gnat-like voice in The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Angus Wilson's Anglo-Saxon Attitudes borrowed its title but little else. The Red Queen hypothesis stems from her evolutionary advice. The Alice books inspired L. Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz and Norton Juster's The Phantom Toll Booth, though Juster claimed no direct exposure. This bibliography compiles key sources on Lewis Carroll, Charles Dodgson, focusing on his life, works like Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass, and cultural influences. It includes biographies, for example, Cohen, Bakewell, annotated editions, Gardner, companions, Elwyn Jones, and analyses, Bloom Clark. Related texts cover children's literature, Hahn, quotations, Knowles, and connections to figures like Douglas Adams, Stanfield, and W.S. Gilbert Stedman. Spanning 1926-2020, it emphasizes scholarly, historical, and interpretive perspectives on Carroll's enduring legacy. Despite delays, Tenniel's masterful illustrations brought Through the Looking Glass to life in 1871, enchanting readers and solidifying Carroll's whimsical legacy.
Thank you for watching this AGNDD intelliReport, dear viewers. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell button to get notified during new uploads. And make sure to tune in next time. Stay safe and healthy. Cheers.